One of the most common questions I hear from players is what are the best football boots for wide feet? And if you search the entire market, you will struggle to find any boots that are wider than the pair that I have here. And these are the custom bio cleats from Prevolve. And when I say custom, I mean these boots were designed entirely based on a detailed scan of my feet. And that of course means that you can get these boots for you based on a custom scan of your feet. Now these are on the pricey side, coming in a little over $400. But before you jump at the price, keep in mind that these are individually made all the way from the sole plate to the upper based on your specifications. And even if these boots are a little out of your price range, I think this video is worth watching because I think these are actually going to have a big impact on the football boot industry in the years to come. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything I like about these as well as discuss what can be improved. And links to these and all the other boots that we discuss in this video can be found in the description below. Let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to notice when you get these out of the box, certainly the first thing I noticed that was unique about the design, is going to be the shape. Just as an example for the sake of comparison, I have a pair of the Adidas Predator Pros here with the Prevolve Bio cleats, and you can see just how different the toe boxes are between the two boots. And because the sole plate on the Prevolves is based on my individual foot scan, it's not going to comply to standards that you normally see in the football boot world. Now I've got 3 different boots from 3 different brands here, but you can see that while they all have slight differences in their sole plates, they have the same overall design aesthetic, all kind of having this torpedo design where they do get pretty narrow towards the end of the toe box. But with the bio cleats, instead of coming to a point near the top of the boots, they're actually going to remain really wide up through the toe box. Now I get it, if you haven't seen shoes with this design before, it may seem a little bit boxy and a little bit outside the norm. But I'm actually really familiar with shoes that have a wide toe box, similar to what you would find in the Prevolves here, because I wear barefoot shoes. I just have an example here of one of the sneakers I like to wear when I go to the gym, and it has a similar design aesthetic when it comes to the toe box. Now the idea behind this design is that it's going to allow for your toes to naturally spread out in the boots instead of getting crushed. Now when it comes to the design of the upper, we're actually going to see some improvements in my opinion compared to the previous Prevolves that I reviewed a little over a year ago. You're actually going to have a really sticky layer at the base of the boots, but then on top of that sticky layer, you're going to have this matte crosshatch diamond shape pattern that's kind of draped on top, and that's going to be made of a different material. And in the end, you kind of get this combination of the stickiness from that base layer as well as the more matte slick finish from the material that's on top of that, and it almost combines to give you the same grippy sensation that you get from the upper on Nike's Phantom GX2. It's not exactly the same as the Phantoms, but that's the closest comparison I could make. I think it's actually a really nice balance between being grippy but also not too over the top sticky. The materials in the upper itself are going to be polyurethane, and while they are very thin, the boots do have a decent amount of structure to them, so they don't feel flimsy in any way. Then running through the center of the boots, you're going to have this really deep traditional lacing system that goes all the way to the base of the toe box, and then the tongue itself actually feels a lot more sturdy than what they had on the previous version. And then similar to a lot of boots we reviewed recently, these are also going to have an added runner's loop lace hole near the top of the ankle. The back of these boots are going to be really simple. You're just going to have these external heel counters on both sides, and then the heel area itself I think is really well done. You have this extremely high density layer of foam that doesn't really have a lot of thickness to it, but it still feels really padded. So overall, the ankle and heel area really well done. Now the insole on these boots is going to be removable, and it is also custom designed based on the shape of your foot scan. And while the insoles themselves are very thin, they do have a similar high density foam padding to them, so they do offer a decent amount of cushioning when you have them in the boots. But they are very easily removable, so if you have another pair of insoles that you prefer, or if you want to cut out your own insoles, that is something that you could do. Now moving over to the underside of these boots, we get one of my favorite features, which is going to be the artificial grass sole plate. Now you can choose between AG and FG when you order these boots online, but I personally went with AG because most of the time I find myself playing on artificial grass pitches. And starting with the stud configuration itself, this is pretty much exactly what I look for in a pair of AG boots. You have a nice high density of these shorter conical studs all throughout the heel, midfoot, and toe box. I also really like how on either sides of the forefoot here, you have these small clusters of studs, pretty much 3 here and 3 here, this is just going to help reduce stud pressure when you're playing on those harder surfaces. And then in terms of the tooling and flexibility of the sole plate, that's another area where I am really impressed, because overall the sole plate itself is really solid, but it still allows for a decent amount of spring up towards the toe box. And actually all throughout the length of the boots, you do get a decent amount of torsional flexion with these sole plates. As you can see, I can kind of bend the boots just slightly from side to side here, whereas with other boots, that's pretty hard to do. But don't get me wrong, the sole plate on these isn't flimsy by any means. I mean, if you want, I can show it in comparison with a pair of just normal barefoot shoes. These are basically a pair of like slip-ons or slides. I can literally roll these shoes up like this. So the sole plate there is completely flexible, has really no structure to it, and that's intentional with those shoes. But when it comes to these shoes, I can't, roll these up all the way, but I think that they have pretty much the perfect amount of flexion that I would look for in a sole plate. And I think that's actually one of the hardest things for football boot manufacturers to do, is get the right balance of flexibility in their sole plates. Because you don't want them too rigid from top to bottom, because that's really going to make it hard for your feet to move within the boots. But then at the same time, you don't want them to be too flexible or too soft, because that could result in an increased likelihood of getting stud pressure. So with the Prevolves here, you're still getting that really good balance of structure and flexibility. Now, because of the really unique shape of these boots, they also deliver a really unique feel on feet. Now, I think the big challenge that a lot of people have when they're trying on a new pair of boots for the first time is that they want the boots to accommodate their feet while also still being really compact. In other words, you want the boots to fit comfortably, but you don't want there to be any extra dead space around the toe box area or towards the midfoot or heel. And it's no surprise, seeing as that these boots were custom designed for the shape of my feet, that I have absolutely no extra space whatsoever between the end of my toes and these boots. But at the same time, these boots do not crush any part of my feet. On the contrary, they're actually extremely comfortable. And once I got them laced up and I was walking around, I really appreciated that I could actually let my toes kind of spread out as they normally would, say if I was barefoot, and I didn't get any pressure points towards the end of the toe box. Now, obviously, everyone's feet are different. They're kind of like snowflakes in that way, but at the same time, they all share some patterns. And one of the patterns that you see most often when it comes to people's feet is that they are generally widest at the toe box. And that's one of the reasons I think so many people find it difficult to fit into some football boots that are currently on the market, is because a lot of them just don't allow for enough space at the front of the boots. So overall, I was really impressed with the shape of these, and then also I was really impressed with the ankle and heel area, as I mentioned before when going over the design. It just felt really snug, and I wasn't noticing any slipping whatsoever. Now, in terms of the upper material, I do think this is an improvement in terms of feel from the previous generation, but I do think it would be cool to see some more variety in terms of different uppers that you could get with this same sole plate and same shape. For example, I think a knit version, a leather version, or even a faux leather material could be really cool with this same design. But in terms of fit and feel, as you would expect for a pair of custom football boots, I was really impressed by these. Similar to how I feel that this new version is a better design compared to the previous one from Prevolve, I also think that these are even a little bit more fun to play in. And it is kind of hard to describe the sensation because they are pretty unique compared to other football boots I've tried on over the past couple years, but I'd say that they actually deliver a really similar sensation to what it's like to play barefoot. And I know that a lot of you guys have played football on the beach or you've played in your backyard. Pretty much everyone at some point has played football barefoot. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that when you play barefoot, you definitely do have a little bit of a different connection with the ball compared to when you're wearing your boots. And I think one of the big reasons for that is that your feet can splay out really wide when you're moving around, and you also get a much bigger surface area with which you can contact the ball. Now, in terms of the touch and the connection you get on the ball while wearing these boots, as I mentioned, the synthetic upper itself is pretty sturdy, so these aren't going to sting your feet when you strike the ball, but they still do offer a lot of sensitivity because the upper itself is very thin. And I found juggling in these was a really interesting sensation because, just as I mentioned before, it almost felt like I was juggling without wearing any boots at all. It takes a few seconds to get used to the different contact areas between your feet and the ball, but you get used to it really quickly. After I got the laces adjusted how I liked and I was playing in these for around 20 to 30 minutes, they really did start to kind of fade into the background. And that's when I know I like a pair of boots that I'm trying out, because I kind of stopped thinking about the individual features and functions of the football boots, and I just kind of think about playing. And I found that these boots were able to do just that. They allowed me to just really focus on myself and the ball. The lockdown from the heel area was great. I had no slipping whatsoever, and the traction I got from the AG sole plate on that AG surface was absolutely great. And I'm definitely going to try and keep playing in these so I can get an even better sense for how they feel, and hopefully in a month or so I can give you guys an updated report. Now, when it comes to value, I'll just hit you guys with it. These boots do retail for about $450. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but keep in mind, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, these are individually made, just a one-of-one copy from a small company. So there's a lot of time and effort going into making these boots, so I think that has to be considered when you're talking about the price point. And if it makes you feel any better, a little over a year ago, I believe that these were retailing close to around $600, so the price actually has started to come down. And I've actually seen some top athletes, not just footballers, but also baseball players and lacrosse players, go for this custom option. And if you are a serious athlete who really struggles to find a good fit from almost any of the other major brands, this is really one of the only companies that's actually offering a solution as far as getting something that will work. But I do want to mention, if you are really young, like if you're a kid who's 8, 9, 10, and you're still growing at a really rapid rate, I would think that getting a pair of custom boots probably won't be a great option for you. Because I know when I was a kid, I went from a size 5 US to a size 10 US within the span of just a few years. And I think for most people, if you are about to spend the money on a custom pair of boots, you might want to be at the stage where you don't think your feet are going to be growing anymore. Now, I have actually spoken to the founder of Prevolve before, and I discussed with him that I think it would be really cool if the company offered a version of their boots with a wide toe box that actually just came in standardized sizes. Now, a more generic option wouldn't be customized to everyone's individual specifications. But for players who are just looking for a great pair of boots with a wider toe box, I think it would be really cool to have a generic option that was under that $200 price point. He mentioned that that could be an option for the future. It's just about finding the right manufacturer that's going to be able to deliver that. So in terms of value, if you play really frequently and you struggle to find a pair of boots that fits your feet, especially towards the toe box area, and you have the money to spend, I think that these could be a great option. In terms of competition, I gotta be honest, there isn't a whole lot to choose from. One of the only other companies I know of making barefoot-inspired football boots is Nature Athletics. Now, those boots are not custom, so they come in standard sizes, and they're gonna retail for $160. But my biggest problem with them at the moment is that they've been on pre-order for a little over 2 years. Hopefully, they're gonna start shipping out later in 2025, and when they do, I'll try and review them. But I will say, from all the images I've seen, I think that the Prevolves, especially in this whiteout version I have here, look aesthetically a lot better. Now, in terms of boots from major brands that could be included in this conversation, one of the only companies that's offering a more compelling wide option is going to be New Balance. For example, I have the 442 V2 Pros here in the wide variation, and they are probably one of the widest mass market football boots that you can get. But just to show you guys the difference in the shape between the Prevolves and one of the widest boots in the New Balances here, you can see just how much more space you get in the toe box with the Prevolves. So while the shape of the customs is obviously going to be better, the upside with New Balance is that you can get a pair of these for less than $130. And with that, what are my final thoughts? There are a lot of companies out there, both big and small, making football boots, and they all claim to be doing something unique. But this is a company that's actually doing something different. And I don't know when, maybe it'll be 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, but I think at some point in the near future, we're gonna see a lot more football boots that are shaped like this. And to wrap up, if you like barefoot shoes, if you have wider feet, and if you have the money to spend, I definitely think these are worth checking out. And guys, that is going to do it for this video. If you haven't seen these boots before, let me know what you think of them in the comments below. Also, if you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.